one of the issues that's super important to everyone who's affected by LHON is how to deal with educational issues. And it can be education if your child is in elementary school, high school, college, as an adult, wherever you are in your life stage. You're either in the middle of classic education, or as an adult with LHON, you have some educational issues to address. Last year I was talking about how important it would be to address this topic, and wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody in the community would step up and study this subject and gather information and bring together a panel of speakers and talk about living with education. And fortunately for us, one of my favorite people in the LHON community stepped up, literally stepped up right behind me and said, I'll do that. And so we are fortunate to have Jennifer Malika here today to talk about living with LHON education. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Lissa. So as Lissa said, I'm here to talk about education. When my son was affected, it was 2 weeks before his freshman year in high school. So it was rapidly where we had to figure things out. So we're going to do a disclosure or a disclaimer. The information that is collected was collected from affected individuals and families of affected individuals. Every situation is different. The degree of vision loss is not the same. This is to be used as a tool for ideas and not intended for total education care of an individual affected by LHON. The concepts that we're going to be hitting today are protecting students with disabilities, what are your rights, how this can be done at various ages, 504 and IEPs, accommodations, assistive technologies, teachers of the visually impaired or TVIs, and education options for adults. At the end, I will introduce my panel, and they will share their stories about their journey with education. We have a wide range of vision issues and disability with LHON, obtaining resources and equipment, obtaining accessible material, informing teachers, schools, and administration, informing other students, and time management. There's some of these issues that we may be facing, and it's not a standard way when dealing with LHON. We're going to first hit on the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. The Rehabilitation Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in programs conducted by the federal agencies, in programs receiving federal financial assistance, in the federal employment, and the employment practices of the federal contractors. The standards for determining employment discrimination under the Rehabilitation Act are the same as those as the Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act. In 2004, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, or the IDEA, is the law that makes available a free, appropriate education to eligible children with disabilities throughout the nation. This ensures special education and related services to children with disabilities. The most important thing I want to remind everyone is that these laws pertain to those facilities that accept government funding. Privately funded schools are not obligated to follow the law. As parents, we can bring our child's diagnosis to the school and think the school will help our child with an IEP or 504. This is not always the case. We must tell the school that we would like an assessment done of our child. Since LHON is a blindness, this is one of the criteria that justifies an assessment being done. The school must do an assessment with the trained personnel. The proper assessment tools must be used, and the tools must measure what they say they're going to measure. There is to be more than one tool used, and if we as parents are not satisfied with the outcome of the assessment or feel that our child is needing more assistance, we can require the school to pay for a professional to assess them. What is a 504 plan? A 504 plan is where you list accommodations that your child may need. Some of the accommodations we'll look at later, but the 504 plan is developed to ensure that a child who has a disability is identified under the law and is attending an elementary or secondary educational institution receives accommodations and will ensure academic success and access to learning environment. An IEP meeting, or an IEP, is an individual education plan. It's a program developed to ensure a child who has a disability under the law and is attending elementary school or secondary education institution receives a specialized instruction and related service. At an IEP meeting, there are usually parents or parent, at least one regular teacher, a special education teacher, a visually impaired teacher, or someone who has administered the assessment, and a district representative that is knowledgeable of the curriculum, knows the provisions of specially designed instruction to meet the needs of the child, and knows the availability of resources of the district. Many schools forget to include the district representative, and if you have anyone else, such as a social worker for the visually impaired, is more than welcome to attend. To get your IEP, it takes time, sometimes up to 30 days. Within LHON, time is not on our side. In our case, Michael was on a 504 plan, and his vision began to rapidly deteriorate, and finals were coming up within the next 20 days. The school sent home all of the questionnaires for the IEP, and if you've never filled out the forms, there are questions that are more or less testing the cognitive ability of the child. They sent all of the forms home, and due to the issue that Michael was not cognitively impaired, but it was visual, they were able to get the IEP in place rapidly, and he could do his finals. Schools may provide assistive technology for homework. In some cases, the technology may not go home with the child, so you need to check with your state or for the visually impaired department and see if you can qualify for assistance in getting technology in your home. Under the IDEA Act of 2004, the law requires schools to use assistive technology and devices to maximize accessibility for children with disabilities. If your IEP determines that your child needs assistive technology devices, the school district is responsible for providing these and cannot use lack of availability or cost as an excuse. The law also requires schools to provide assistive technology training for students, child, and family. These are just a few of the accommodations that students have had over the years with LHON. They are not limited to, but these are things that have helped. So on the 504, some of your accommodations that you could list would be extra time for homework, larger font size if it helps, frequent breaks due to neck fatigue, eye strain, headaches, extra time for tests, tests being read in large print or in emailed format, for homework, worksheets, seat placement, extra desk space near an outlet in case if you're using a Visio book or something that needs to be plugged in, audiobooks, assistive technology, education assistance helping with you, and early hall passing if necessary. Possible goals for an IEP. So an IEP, again, is a personalized education plan, and you use these to help your child excel. So one of the biggest things, especially with LHON, is getting somebody to be self-advocating. Orientation mobility, white cane proficiency, Braille technology training, and transition services. Your school may come up with different goals at each grade level. The most important thing that we can teach our child is self-advocacy. No one knows how your child sees except your child. They must be able to learn, I can't, I need, please help. I know that Braille and white cane are considered one of the hot topics in the LHON community. In our situation with Michael, it was brought to him as far as Braille was, if you aren't able to do the job that you wanted and you think you might be up in public speaking, instead of holding your iPad close to your face, reading Braille cards would be easier. But you need to do what's best for you. If that is something you don't want to learn at the time, that's your choice. Teachers of the visually impaired have been trained to help your child get the best possible education. Be in contact with your TVI. If they cannot teach orientation mobility or Braille, they may recommend the school to hire someone who is trained. Sometimes the best advocate you have is your TVI. They assist and help with accommodations, may be trained in orientation and mobility, may be able to teach Braille to your student. Part of your IEP team knows what kind of technology is suitable and help advocates for accommodations. Assessing information, you can have support readers, scribes, parents, other students. Under magnification, you can use a Ruby, a portable CCTV like a VisioBook Connect 12 electronic magnifier. You can use talking rulers, talking calculators, VoiceOver, JAWS, Braille, Bookshare, iPad, iPhone with assistive apps. There are several possibilities of other items, but these have been used with many students. Standardized testing. Accommodations needed for VI test takers. ACT, SAT test accommodations must be done and requested in approval. Testing for state accommodations can be made and requested. The biggest thing to remember regarding the ACT and SAT, they have to be made in advance. So you can't wait until 1 or 2 weeks prior to your ACT and think you're going to get accommodations. So make sure that when you're dealing with that, the school, sometimes they even require it in the IEP, so make sure that your school is aware of that. For state testing, if accommodations can't fully be made in like a reading portion, they want you to actually read the document, you can opt out of your state testing, so don't feel bad if you're opting out of that test. If a student would like to attend a blind school, so Schools for the Blind, do your research. If you're finding that your child is in a public school and they're going to be placed in a special education class with tons of other students, is that the correct place for you? Is that what you want? Is your child going to be mainstreamed? Check out a blind school, see what their curriculum is about. Who are they going to be with? How far is it away? Are they going to live on campus, or are they going to commute to? Most blind schools have the most up-to-date technology. Usually they'll learn Braille. They'll be in classes with other visually impaired students. Again, like the public school, you'll have an IEP set up. And they'll learn basic living skills. And one especially important thing is they form bonds with other visually impaired students. LHON does not make your child unable to learn. Your child needs to relearn how they had learned with visual cues. Is the School of Blind going to help your child achieve their independence, teach them to learn all? This all depends on your child and the schools. See what your child's needs are, as every child is different and at every age level is different. For grad and college, you've got the College Disabilities Office. You've got the college counselors who are very helpful. You'll need to do financial aid, scholarships, orientation and mobility training for campus, learning platform and technology is the one that you're used to using, compatible with the schools. For adults going back to college, you may need to provide your high school transcripts. Parents, when you apply at the disability office with your child, they need possibly a proof of visual impairment. Your 504 IEP is very helpful. College counselors are very good if you need someone to talk to. And learningally.org has a program for the visually impaired for students going to tour for your college for a mentorship program. And once again, the information on that can be obtained at learningally.org. Check with your state offices for the visually impaired. Many states offer financial aid or offer aid to help with college. Some help with housing and food. So don't forget to ask, and they may have timelines as well. Currently, I believe it's IRA is currently offering grants to college students at their .edu account. Some practical tips. We encourage teachers to be vocal about what they write on the board. The best advice you can give to your child's teacher is teach as if they were teaching over the telephone. Encourage everyone to move quickly as LHON vision loss occurs much faster than anything they're accustomed to dealing with. Remind the IEP and 504 team that your child is different from others on these plans. Most children with LHON do not have a learning disorder. Help push your student to excel. Self-advocacy. Helping teachers understand LHON prior to class, possibly doing a PowerPoint. Under the philosophical tips, again, self-advocacy. If I can't say that enough, your child needs to be self-advocate. Involve your student in the decisions and discussions. Guide educators not to just accommodate, but to help your student excel. Check out www.parentcenterhub.org for parent resource centers in your state and webinars. I've also included Michael. When he became affected, he did a PowerPoint that before he went to every single teacher, he emailed them his PowerPoint that told what LHON is, how he became affected, what he can see, what he needs help with, what issues he may be facing. It's good for the students to just let the teachers know what I'm dealing with. There are scholarships available through the NFB. Colleges have scholarships, ABC Scholarship, Lighthouse Guide, Christian Record Services, AFB, and Learning Ally. Check with your own schools. Many schools have scholarships that are locally. If a student comes visually impaired, they write a little article about what happened to them. Your journey is impactful, and you can usually get scholarships from your own town. Blindness training. Once you become affected, you need to figure out what type of program you would like. Do you want to do a live-at-home program, or do you want to go to a house or a facility where you'll stay? What do you need help with? Basic living skills, college courses. You need to decide what's best for you. Hadley offers all types of classes, and if you're visually impaired, you fill out the paperwork, and with the visual impairment, there is no cost to the individual. There are classes on technology, how to use devices, and they do also offer classes on Braille. I spoke with a few teachers that are affected with LHON, and this is what they had told me about being a teacher. They felt just like in every other job, you had to prove yourself. Things take longer. If it takes someone to grade papers for an hour, it might take them 3. In the beginning with behavior, they felt like they had to be tough and firm so that students knew that they weren't going to be able to get away with anything. They used what works best for them, a whiteboard, smartboard, magnifiers, CCTVs, laptop with JAWS. They felt like they did a better job in some ways because they were always trying to prove themselves. Their classroom was verbal, as they couldn't have students raising their hands, and they would often tell in the beginning for the student to say their name so they could recognize the voice. They do have an education assistant in the classroom to help with attendance, but not with any of the teaching. We do have a Facebook group for navigating education. We did have one conference call a few years back regarding education. It was an open talk session. We talked about everything under the sun as far as IEPs, 504, what's working for your child, what's not working. And if people feel like they would like to do more conference calls around IEP time, they usually look at them in the fall and in the spring. We would love to get together and have another call. Please let me know, or posted on the Navigating Education site, and we can get something set up. We can have a speaker come on. And if you look at the Navigating Education site, Maria Johnson had just posted an amazing article called Resources for the Visually Impaired Students. So if you want to go back and look at that, that was a very good article. Do not forget that LHON.org is a good resource for all LHON things. Links to the organizations that we have discussed and other helpful resources would be located under Section 6, under School and College, on the Living with LHON page of this site. At this time, I'd like to introduce my panel today. We have Jen Tylock, Donna Bassi, Hector Gomez, and Cindy Huseman.
Hi everyone. My name's Jen. I was affected at 14, so it was the end of 8th grade. So at the end of 8th grade, it still seemed like a virus, like optic neuritis, that would go away. So at the end of 8th grade, it was like a scramble to finish the year out. But then for high school, I had an IEP. The school provided me with a Ruby handheld magnifier to use in classes, and the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind gave me a CCTV for homework at home. The school also had one to use for tests there, and it was probably available like during the day, but I never used it, but I think it was available. I also, at the beginning of the year, part of my IEP was the teachers getting like a short training on what's helpful for me, and part of what my TVI wanted me to learn self-advocacy, so she would teach the training the first 2 years, and then I started helping her and also teaching the teachers towards the end of high school. And I also had extra time for tests, and I took the SATs, and for that my accommodations were using the CCTV for the test 1.5 time. I didn't have to use the bubble sheet to fill in the answers. I just circled my answer on the test booklet, and then someone else went through and filled out the bubble sheet for me. And then even things like writing utensils, you're only allowed number 2 pencils, which don't work for me, so I had to get approval to use like 20/20 markers or like black pens. So that's something you might not think about that you need approval for. And then in college, in high school I hadn't been using any distance viewing things. I was just relying on auditory learning in class, but in college it became a lot more important to see what they are writing on the board. So I used this device called a note taker. It is a small camera that it has an attachment so you can screw onto your lecture desk, and you point it at the boards and it'll put the information on your computer, and then I can magnify it on my computer. So I used that in lecture. There were also some classes that they had a PowerPoint going, a screen share of their computer, and they were using the whiteboards, and that became overwhelming to use that camera device, so I ended up doing a screen share with the professor, so I would have his information, like his computer screen on my computer screen, and it was easier to flip between views on my computer than like changing the camera view. And I also still got the extra time for tests in college. In college, the Student Disability Services, they would write letters with your accommodations that you could give to all your professors. And it depended on the professor how strict they were about needing the letter. But usually the letters weren't available for a week or 2 into the semester, so usually before the semester started, I would email my professor and introduce myself and tell them what I needed. And then I would say, I have this letter, I can bring it to you when it's available, but this is what I need for now. And that was usually really helpful, the letter. I don't think they actually read the letter. Yeah, so that's how I got through high school and college.
Well, my son, he was just finishing his sophomore year last spring, and
I did not want to do this. By the middle of fall, he was flying. Can I do?
Yep.
I'm sorry. We've been dealing with the Texas workforce, which deals with, as everybody said, the state tuition, books, equipment. You have to provide documentation, and of course jump through other 8 million rules and paperwork that you do every semester. And it is a lot of paperwork. It's mandatory 12 hours. You have to maintain a C average. They also have the Lighthouse for the Blind with independent living and technology training and vision evaluations. We had a great low vision doctor who took hours with him to go over equipment, which he thought would work for him. And it was just nice because she was kind of an independent person. As far as the college, because he was already in college, a lot of what Jen said, you have to each year provide documentation that you're still legally blind, and then they provide you a letter that you're supposed to give to your professors. And my son did the same. He always, before the semester started, would reach out to his professors and let them know what was wrong and go meet with them. And he kind of, learned that he had to step up. In high school, I always go, come on, make the effort. So now he's realized he has to be independent. He has to make that effort, which helped a lot. He was able, as she said, have note takers, which that's kind of a variable. How well does that person take notes? So some professors will give you their notes. You can have a private test area, extra time, readers that will read the test. And the first fall semester, because he started out almost normal and ended blind, he hid out, and I asked him why he wasn't doing the same thing this last semester. If something had happened, he said, no, I just have learned to deal with it better, and he would introduce himself to his class and tell them so that they would know what was wrong with him, and let them know that he wasn't ignoring them, that he doesn't see them, he doesn't know who they are, that they have to tell him. One of his professors forced him to go see the college counselor. I had tried to get him to see a counselor. He informed me he wasn't crazy, and I said, it's not about being crazy. It's about having somebody to talk to, and this professor did not take no for an answer, and I was ever so grateful. And he goes to the lady every Thursday, and he's very angry that he doesn't get to see her over the summer. But it really has helped him to be able to say what he has to say. You can only tell your parents so much. As far as the equipment that he likes, he has that 12.9-inch new iPad Pro, the newest, largest iPhone. He uses his Ruby a lot, and yes, the battery will go dead in some classes. He loves the Seeing AI. He uses audiobooks versus hardcover. He has a 32-inch monitor that he hooks up to his Surface, and his favorite thing is his whiteboard. He said he can just scribble on it. He has one on his refrigerator for things that he needs. He also has the trial version of the Zoom Text Fusion, which has JAWS and Zoom Tech. If you buy it, it's $1,200 to $1,600, unless they will fund it. But Texas, if you don't type fast enough in their opinion, they will not fund it. So those are things that you won't necessarily get. All colleges have different equipment. They won't necessarily have what your son has, what he needs. But our college, Tarleton State, has been really good. One of the hardest things for us is he was 20 minutes away from the school and could no longer drive. And so I had to find a rideshare program and delivery services. And we just recently moved him 4 blocks from campus. And the one thing he said is, great, Domino's delivers here. So he's happy about Domino's, and the grocery store can deliver, but it's, it allows them to be more independent. And as he said, because you're always talking about old people, because I deal with insurance, and he said, you take away their car, they lose their independence. And he goes, it's no different for us. All of a sudden, we have no independence. We can't leave and go and this and that. So for him to be able to now walk to class at his leisure has been very important. And thank you.
going to speak about the Hadley Institute, because that's the education that I took part of, but I wanted to give a little bit of background of how I got to that point. Our son was affected at age 7. It was the summer before his 2nd grade in a Montessori school, so he had the same teacher from 1st grade going into 2nd grade. She helped us understand he for sure had something going on with his eyesight, because the first doctor we went to made us doubt. But anyway, so after we got the diagnosis and the Montessori school told us that they really weren't the best place for his education, we had to make the decision of going to School for the Blind or mainstreaming into public school. So the blind school seemed like the best option, at least temporarily. And one of the first things that the teachers there addressed was that if he could learn keyboarding skills, that would be beneficial the rest of his life. And so he immediately learned how to type. And fast forward to me, I grew up at a time period where it never did seem like a requirement to actually learn how to type. And so I had done the hunt and peck my entire adult life. And then when I was affected in November of 2017, I realized to keep doing my job we own our own business, and so typing long documents like press releases and newsletters and you name it, all of the keyboarding skills were a requirement for me to continue doing my job. So I looked into keyboarding classes through the Department of Human Services Division of Services for the Blind in the state of Arkansas. And they were going to give me a program to dictate onto the computer, and then I wanted a typing class, so I just kept pursuing that, and finally came across the Hadley Institute. And they have reformatted how they offer courses in the meantime, but I'll give you my experience was that I applied and had to prove, that I was legally blind to actually take the type of class for keyboarding, and so I had assignments that I completed and would turn in through email, and they would give me a grade back, and I progressed all the way through with a nearly 100% on my class, and I was thrilled to get that under my belt because it made doing my job so much easier. And then I've been in touch with Hadley in the meantime because the beginning of this year, they have started reformatting how they offer all of their classes, and by the beginning of 2020, it'll be all completely set up new on their website where you don't actually have to enroll for the classes that they offer. It's all just going to be available to you on their website. So all you have to do is go to hadley.edu, and it's not just classes on things like keyboarding, but they still have regular courses that you can sign up for if you're doing things in Braille. But for the rest of us who aren't interested in Braille, you can take classes on, it's such a wide variety. But some of the videos that I have really enjoyed teach every single step about how to do voiceover on my phone and the iPad. And then also with the Apple TV, it has voiceover on it, and you can learn. The little step-by-step videos are just incredible because they aren't, it's not too much information within one video. It's broken down into little parts, and so it really makes it easy to understand. And then the other thing that they realized that they needed to add are these discussion forums, so people can find a topic that they're interested in. For example, gardening is one of them. You figure out when that discussion is going to be taking place, you call in. There might be close to 200 other people who are interested in how that topic relates to their life as far as being a visually impaired person and wanting to understand how others accomplish these things. And so it's fantastic discussion forums that are available there too. There are so many things available through Hadley, and so if you'll just take the time to check out their website and see what all is there, I think you'll find something for you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Hector Gomez, and I'm here to share a little bit about myself and my experiences with LHON. I'm 42 years old. I was affected at around 7 years old. I am a teacher in the state of Texas. I've been teaching for 21 years. I've been working in the public school system for 21 years. I got hired in first I graduated high school in 95. 96, I went through a nurse aide training program. 97, I got my associates. In 1998, I was hired as a teacher aide, paraprofessional in the computer lab, and I did that for 3 years. And back then we had the green letters on those screens. It was hard to see, but I made it through. Within that time, I made reports and I gave the assignments to the students from my computer and ran reports of their progress for the teachers. I serviced kids from pre-K through 5th grade. What else? I'm in 1990. In 2000, I got my bachelor's. 2001, I got my first professional teaching assignment as a 1st grade teacher. I did that for 9 years. I'm certified 1st through 8th grade with a reading specialization and also with a bilingual endorsement. I'm also certified to be a bilingual teacher. So I was a first grade bilingual teacher for those 9 years in that one campus. Within that time, I was also a bilingual advocate for the rest of the bilingual teachers in the other grade levels. I was a mentor teacher. I had a student teacher under me for 2 times, two different occasions. What else? I went through several teacher workshops, a multitude of teacher workshops. I was a member of several committees, Campus Improvement Committee. I was Teacher of the Year for my campus for 2005, and that was a great honor. It's a great honor to be here too. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. After that, I said, you know what? I felt blessed and honored to have gotten that privilege. I went back to school in 2005 and got my master's in 2006 in school administration. And I took the test and passed it for principal. So I'm certified to be a principal or assistant principal. I've been teaching in 3 different districts. I haven't had a difficulty, finding a job. All you need is somebody to give you the opportunity to prove yourself. And I've taught 1st grade, 2nd grade. I've taught several summer school classes during summer. I'm currently teaching special ed. I service kids 6th through 12th grade. So when she's talking about the IEPs and the goals and the objectives, and I'm familiar with all that. So whenever she has the conference calls, I would love to be a part of that. If you guys have any questions or stuff, I don't know. That's it.
At this time, we'd like to open up for any questions, if you have any questions for the panel or about education.
Good morning, thanks. Great presentation there. I'm curious, 2 things I missed when you talked about note taker. I'm not sure if that was a device or a person next to you. And to Hector there, is there any ones, that's probably not the best way to ask it, what device allowed you to be able to do all this wonderful education and learning and sharing back?
The device, ever since I started young, in elementary, I used a big old dinosaur of a CCTV, big bulky TV with a big size telescope that pointed down in the planchette, and you would move it around. And high school, middle school, I did that. High school, kids can be very cruel, and with the name of Hector, I was called Hector the projector, Hector the inspector, and I whatever, just got to let things slide a lot of the times. And Yeah, that was a good one. I just used a pocket-sized magnifier, have a CCTV at home and in the classroom, and right off the bat, I told my students about it, and and just encourage them because how boring would it be if we were all the same? I think we all have a window of opportunity. No matter what, we all have a window of opportunity. Some windows might be open a little bit more than others, but us with a disability, with this kind of LHON condition, I used education to level out the field, and I did have to prove myself to others, but mostly prove myself to myself, meet my standards. And what I attribute these successes, it was challenging, but first off, God, you have to have faith in somebody higher than you. Secondly, parents. Parents are the cornerstones. They're the pillar of life, to your children. Be the encourager. Don't treat them any differently. Have high expectations, because my parents had high expectations for me, and I tried to meet those expectations. And that motivation came extrinsically, and that made me, meet their goals, and then set my goals aside from that. And then above that, acceptance, accept, who I am. Maybe not care what people say or think, but do things my way, learn the tricks to the trade, to do the things that I can do and do them better. And really, if you list the things that you can do, the pros and cons, the pros outweigh, the cons by far. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. The note taker, yes.
When I was talking about the note taker, for me, it's a device that I used, a camera device. Unfortunately, I don't think it's commercially available anymore because it was like a research project of a student at my college who they tried to take it to the market, but then he started doing other things, so I don't think you can actually buy them anymore, but there might still be some older ones left. But I like that a lot because compared to the other distance viewing cameras, it was really small, like this big, like the size of a piece of bread maybe, I don't know, trying to describe that, compared to the other ones that are usually available are big hunky things that have to sit on a desk. This one was a small portable one that you could either put on a desk or attach to a desk. And that was the name of it, Note Taker? Yeah, Note Taker 3.0 I think was the one I was using. I can try and find the links for it because it's sometimes hard to locate. I can give that to Jennifer or Alyssa to distribute.
Any other questions?
My name's Mark Dummage. I went to college quite a few years ago at this point, but at my community college I went to just in Maryland, they had the same kind of thing, like their disability department there, and each of my classes, they would just kind of ask or even assign a student if nobody volunteered to be the note taker. And so the way it worked was all their notes that they took for themselves, they would make copies of them. And so as long as you found a student who took good notes, you just got an exact copy of all their notes. So that was essentially a way that you could just get notes copied in any class that you take. You just have somebody else's copy their notes and give you a copy of them. And so as long as it's a girl with decent handwriting, you can read them under a CCTV that, I had a CCTV at home the way that everybody else has spoken about. And so that's, just what I did with all my classes was notes from somebody else. And somebody else mentioned, most of my classes were IT type classes. So I had Zoom techs on each of the, computers that I was, working on in the different classrooms I was in. And so they would take notes, and the professors were lecturing, but anything that was taking place on the computers that we had to do, I was able to do all that kind of things. And so, I work in IT today. I work at the Securities and Exchange Commission here in DC, and I do the IT support there. And I recently got promotion, and now I'm the adaptive technology specialist at the SEC. So anybody there who needs adaptive technology like JAWS or Zoom text, I provide the training to those individuals. So that's what I do as a job now. So, but yeah, any as long as you're, your own advocate, like everyone has stated, people are always willing to provide you with whatever you need to, assist you because, it's not like we have learning disabilities, we just have, issues saying. So people are always willing to help you out if you just let them know what you need.
I had a question with the relation to college. I know, so it seemed like half and half the accommodations were provided by the school disability office and also the state. Do you know if you actually have to be a resident of that state to receive their services?
In Texas, you have to be a resident.
So like if the child went out of state to college, they would have to establish their own residency?
Well, in Texas, they only pay for the in-state tuition.
Here, microphone down.
Yeah, they'll only cover in-state schools and their tuition, and it's up to the 12 hours. They don't cover out-of-state or private.
But that's for Texas residents in Texas.
Correct. And I don't know, because if you went out of state, I don't think Texas covers any out of state. It's just strictly Texas state universities.
And the way it is set up in Arkansas is we wanted our son to go to a private university. They would fund the equivalent of a state school, and then the rest we had to figure out with scholarships, et cetera. So I think that's usually how it's set up, is that they'll fund up to whatever it would cost to do that state's university.
And it's tuition only.
But the private school was it was still in Arkansas though?
Yes.
Okay, and for my son, we live in Minnesota, but we have a conjoining with Wisconsin. So he went to Wisconsin for college. The State Services for the Blind of Minnesota paid what they would have paid as if he would have gone to a university in Minnesota. So the best thing to do is check with your state's visually impaired service department. And I wanted to get you a name for every state, but I'm finding that every state is not called the same thing. So it's best on that parentcenter.hub, that'll give you a link to your state's visual department. So that's the best thing, and it's great to start there first.
And they don't cover room and board, not in Texas. It's strictly just your 12 tuition hours. And they just cover the 12 tuition hours, no room, no boarding, meals, any of that. They will cover textbooks, of which then once they were proven paid for, then the university ordered the audio books for Dylan. So they'll do that, and they will pay for some supplies, I guess note paper, but we didn't need the note paper.
And in Minnesota, they paid for Michael's part of his residency and part of his food. So it all depends on your state. Sorry. Do you know what services you got for help from your? I can speak for Jen. Timmy. Hold on, Mavo.
Wait for the mic.
In Massachusetts, I believe you could go to another college in another state, and Massachusetts would help provide whatever. In our case, in Massachusetts, it's not an automatic that you get tuition help. It's financial need, but Jen could get help with her books if she needed to do that, and I believe if she had gone to another state, the Commission of the Blind in Massachusetts would have connected her to a state organization wherever she ended up going to school, but she did stay in Massachusetts. So.
Thank you. Brandon from Virginia. I grew up in California, and the accommodation was they pay for the cheapest option, which was community college and the Cal State system, in my case. But it was nice. My question was, so a big part of being successful in school is extracurriculars. If you don't mind talking about any accommodations that made it work to, play sports, get involved in stuff like that.
I was a pole vaulter on the track and field team. I didn't really have accommodations from the school. I made adaptations myself. part of pole vaulting, you start at a certain point on the runway. So I had like markers to show me where to start, and I usually just ask people for help to like find certain things. I think in my IEP, I was supposed to like. My mom said the coach was supposed to provide me with someone to like help me find the bathrooms and stuff like that. So I think they could have done that, but I didn't really use that. And then I was in the band. I played French horn, and the school helped me. Or there was this device called Dancing Dots. That's this big tablet that you can use sheet music on it, digitalized sheet music. So use a foot pedal to change like the measure and the page. That I did try out to see if that could help me, but it was like too hard to learn, and I just was using enlarged sheet music and holding it up to my face while I played. So that's all that I used.
Cindy, did your son or Hector, did you guys do
Extracurriculars? Extracurricular in school, high school, I wasn't involved in anything. I probably just got by with a C. Don't hear that, son. Because I was too busy, being a high school kid. But when it came down to high school, I got serious. I think the important thing in this was just having an outlet, because, growing up as a teenager with LHON is very hard. And, especially knowing that you're not going to have a license, a car, being able to drive, or pick up a girlfriend or whatever. So as long as you have an outlet, my outlet was the gym, lifting weights. That was always there for me, and I used that. If you like singing, dancing, relaxation, drawing. As long as you have something to get your stress out, all that negativity out, and don't let it fester inside. And I think that's it.
And I'm going to throw Marcy under.
I was going to answer that question as well.
But Marcy has a Visio book. Can people look at it? She's in the second row on your left-hand side. But Marcy, that's the Visio book is what my son used to get through his sophomore year in high school.
Yeah, I have my Visio book right here, and I also have a pair of TV glasses with me. So yes, everyone is more than welcome to look at them. Before I had the Visio book, I had the Acrobat, and the Visio, it actually goes all the way up.
Yep, lift the screen up.
Yeah, I had it down so it wouldn't be in people's way. I use that at work when I'm in training meetings. I could put the hard copy material up under it, but the lens actually moves, so when there was PowerPoint up, I can point the lens towards the screen. And I also, like another item I have is at my computer screen is a flat screen monitor. Mounted to the wall, so don't think that you're confined to using what size computer monitors come to. My computer monitor at my job is a flat screen TV. I have my TV glasses with me as well. They are fantastic because you don't just use them for watching TV. I can put them on now and I can kind of see who's on the stage. Of course, it depends on what vision you do have left, because we do know that all of our vision is different, and there's a wheel to adjust them. But yes, I'll put those up at the table with the Visio book as well. I'll be speaking later also, so I'll just stop there.
What is a Visio book? It's a magnifier?
It's a magnifier. You can put
I've got a piece of paper under it.
Yeah,
I can put it down to Martina.
It's like a portable CCTV if you can't see it.
Yeah. Okay, you put some under it for her? Okay. But yeah, I'll leave it up here, so if during break you want to see how it works, because it has the zoom thing that can go in and out, and you can change the contrast. Like I said, The lens moves, so you can put your hard copy material up under here and it will magnify it on the screen, or you can turn it and face it towards something else. So it is very useful and portable because the Acrobat that I have on my actual desk, that travels in a big suitcase, whereas this is a messenger size bag. So yeah. But the Acrobat has a bigger screen, so if you're wanting to see more on the screen, the Acrobat is still a nice tool as well.
Jennifer, I'll add something. It's Hope over here in the corner.
Oh, okay.
Over here in this corner.
Okay.
Hi. The only thing I wanted to mention, my son is in college, so I can speak to Donna. He's going into his 3rd year in college. And just ditto to everything everybody said here. I just wanted to mention one other tool that we were offered during accommodations. He was affected right before he went to college, so when we sat down, they're like, what accommodations do you need? And we were like, we don't know. What do you got? So one thing that he was offered and did have for a little bit and never used, but possibly because everybody has different vision and different, just to throw it out there, I wish I could remember the name of it. It just occurred to me now when somebody was mentioning something. It's a pen, and you get a special notebook with it that works with the pen. And if you picture the notebook, it looks like a regular spiral-bound notebook, except picture it with like a graph paper with little tiny dots at every single intersection of the graph paper, if you can picture that. And when you turn this pen on, the pen can record. So think of a spy novel that you've read. The pen can record. You technically have to ask the teacher if that's okay. You're not allowed to share anything with anybody. But when you write with the pen on that page, you tap the corner of the page and it knows what page you're on. Then you write with that pen, and you can write as big as you want. When the teacher's talking, you can write one word that might trigger you to know where he is in that lecture and what he's talking about. So like, think about writing an outline. And then at the end, you can go back to your notes and you can literally tap on that page and it will read you back what he was saying during that part of the lecture. So it was very cool. My son never used it because writing was easy for him, and he just found that he didn't even use his note taker services with the person who submitted their notes. He just made friends in his class, and they would all study together. So, but it's out there. There's this pen, and if that sounds like the most amazing thing ever, let me know, and I can for sure get you the name of it. But it was very cool. I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah. I'm super helpful.
If Hope gets me the information, we can post it on the LHON homepage and on the navigation page. Scribe pen.
It's a scribe pen.
You can actually find those pens at Fry's Electronics most of the time, by the way. This may help other people. I don't officially have the LHON gene, but I have an optic neuropathy, swelling, and loss of vision. But when I went through college, because of my vision issues, they actually were able to give me accommodation through the disability office. And in the state of Georgia, they use a program called AMAC, which is Assistive Media Access. I forget what the C stood for, but basically what it does, and it was developed through the University of Georgia, is they have a program that will actually translate all of your textbooks into a computer-based program of PDF, and that program will also allow you to highlight via the computer text in your textbook on the computer, along with audio and reading the text of your book, and also allow you to put notes and stuff and adjust the screen size of the text by enlarging and changing the contrast. I don't know if that's available in other states, but if you Google AMAC in UGA, it usually will pop up a link, so that may be helpful for others.
We'll take one more comment or question because we've got more to get through for the day. And if you have anything else, post it on the main page or on the navigation with LHON, and we'll just get more conversation started. Thank you.
Wow. I'm so excited. That was awesome, Jennifer. Thank you. Panelists, thank you. You have just proven one of the things I know to be very true, which is that this community of people is the best source of information for this community of people. And we've got so many folks with so much information that can be helpful to others. And it's just wonderful to have the opportunity to have people share their expertise in this way.